everybody, happy Blockheads Wednesday. This week is week 22 of Blockheads 5 and our guest designer is Jackie MacDonald of Sweetfire Road. This is her first time designing for Blockheads and we're so thrilled to have her. Her block is called Second Star and she has a very sweet story for the inspiration behind this block. So be sure to check out her blog so that you can get all the details. Here's my finished Second Star. I loved making this fun little block. I had so much fun choosing my fabrics and deciding on my fabric placement. And I made the 6-inch version and it was a lot of fun to make these tiny little sawtooth stars. They finish at 3 inches, y'all. So let's grab your pattern and dive in and start sewing. For this week's block, we're making 2 sawtooth stars and alternating them with larger solid squares of fabric. So I had a lot of fun playing around with fabric combinations today and kind of trying to decide what I wanted to use to make my block. I have decided to make slightly different stars. So I've got my A and B squares here. These are for my 4-time flying geese. So they'll have different star points for each one, but they'll have the same center. So here's my D squares for the center of my star blocks. And then I've got this pretty dark floral here for my E squares. The first step of our instructions this week is to make our 4-time flying geese. Now, I have gotten a lot of practice making 4-time flying geese with blockheads. I used to not like this method very much at all, but I have grown to love it. And in fact, it is my favorite way to make flying geese now. It's the only way I make my flying geese. If you are new to this method or you've had trouble with it in the past, I give you slightly oversized measurements in your cutting instructions so that you can trim down to a really precise flying geese unit after you've gone through the different steps to make it. So give it a try. And if you are not familiar with the 4-time method, I've got the instructions right here in your pattern, but I also will link a more detailed tutorial in the description below where I have walked through step by step on how to make 4-time flying geese. So I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine and get my flying geese made, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I've got all my flying geese here ready to trim, and like I said, they're oversized for what they need to be. So for the 6-inch block, we're going to trim these down to 1 1/4 inches by 2 inches. And right now they're coming in at about 2 and a little over 2 1/4 and 1 1/2. So we've got a good amount to trim down. So the trick to trimming down your flying geese is to remember that the apex of your center triangle here needs to be at the halfway point of your trim size. Okay, so since I'm trimming these down to 1 1/4 by 2 inches, the apex of my triangle here needs to be at the 1-inch mark on my ruler. So let's take a look at that a little bit closer. Okay, so in this view, you can see that I've got the apex of my triangle is right here at the 1-inch mark on my ruler, and it's down 1/4 inch from the top of the ruler. So there's my 1/4 inch seam allowance, so that when I sew in my flying geese, it's going to, I'm going to keep that point, and it's going to be right there at the point of my little triangle there. So you can see how much I'm going to trim away. And at this size, my 45, or really with this size of ruler, my 45-degree angle here isn't right on my seam line of my triangle, but that's okay. It runs parallel to it, so I know I'm on track. So I'm going to trim along the right side and the top. And now I'll turn it around and line it up again. So again, I've got my 1/4 inch right there at the apex, and I've got the 1-inch mark right there at that apex of my triangle. So now I can trim this down, and you can see I'm at 1 1/4 by 2 inches. There it is, my finished flying geese unit. So now let me trim the rest and we can move on to the next step. Our next step is to assemble our Sawtooth stars. So when I assemble these, I'm going to press towards the corner squares and then towards the center square so that when I join all the rows together, my seams are going to nest nicely. Now, don't forget, when you're joining your flying geese to the center square, make sure that you have that flying geese unit on the top so that you can watch for your point as you're sewing down that 1/4 inch seam. So if I sew this way, I can't see where the point is of my flying geese. But if I sew this way, then as I'm going along with my 1/4 inch seam, if something happens to be a little bit off on my flying geese, I can just ease over the seam allowance a little bit and make sure that I don't get too much of that point and lose it. Okay, my Sawtooth stars are assembled and trimmed. They trimmed down to 3.5 inches. Well, actually, I didn't really have much trimming to do at all. It just tidied up the threads. So now I'm ready to join them to my E-squares, and when I sew the E-squares to my Sawtooth stars, I'm going to press towards the E-squares. And then when I join the whole block together, I'll press that seam open. I did press open the seams of my Sawtooth star as well. And here is my finished second star block. I love how it turned out. This one was so much fun to play around with my fabric choices before I settled on these. I had a lot of fun just kind of going through my little pile of my fabric pull and kind of playing around with, did I want to mix up the points on my star? Did I want to mix up the centers? Did I want to have a big variation in the colors between my solid block and the background for my stars? There's just so many different ways that you can play with this block, and so this was a lot of fun. I've got my Americana block here as well, and you can see I kind of went the opposite. I chose to do a lighter colored background, lighter colored fabric for my E-squares and go with a little bit darker background for my stars. Jackie, thank you so much for designing Second Star for us. What a sweet block and what a sweet tribute to your niece. I can't wait to see all of your different versions of Second Star in our Facebook group this week and on Instagram. So if you haven't joined us on Facebook, don't forget to go and be part of our official Blockheads Facebook group. It's a great community with over 73,000 fellow Blockheads. And then if you post your block on Instagram, be sure to use the hashtag ModaBlockheads5. I hope this video has been helpful this week. Thanks so much for watching and happy quilting. We'll see you next time.